as I mentioned, that we're in like this heavy time of year, and the sermon will also be like a little on the heavier side. So before that, I have just like a moment, a little levity. So sometimes I try to match my socks to the parsha or the calendar. Tisha B'Av does not lend to good sock content, but I know that a number of you joined us earlier this week on Broadway. We went to see Just in Time, little Bobby Darin music, so I got my rubber duckies. Jonathan Groff had maroon socks with rubber duckies. Mine are blue, but in honor of our good friend and I think Susan Davis's new boyfriend, Jonathan Groff, were my rubber duckies for today. Anyway, all right, so now that's over. Now I'm going to be a bummer. Forgive me. So tomorrow night marks Tisha B'Av. It means the 9th of Av. It's this day in our calendar that we associate with all of the heaviness of the history of the Jewish people. It marks the destruction of the first temple and the second temple, and then other moments of hardship throughout our tradition. Crusades, Kristallnacht, Chmielnicki massacre. This is our moment to hold all of that heaviness. The custom on that day is to fast. It's to sit on the floor. In our service tomorrow evening, there will be options to sit on the floor, candlelight, and we'll sing dirges, feel that heaviness and sorrow, and dwell there for a time. And then we get up. We get up out of the sorrow and try to find comfort and consolation. It becomes this moment where we often evaluate what it means to be a Jew in the world as it is. Sometimes we see it as our moment in the calendar for the lachrymose, the heavy theory of Jewish history. All the times we were persecuted or expelled or exterminated, it's this day where we commemorate all of that. And when we look in our sacred text, when we look in Talmud, the rabbis of the Talmud, they don't know from the persecutions and exterminations and expulsions. They know of 586 BCE, when the Babylonians destroyed the first temple, and 70 CE, when the Romans destroyed the second temple. And when the rabbis look at those two dates, 586 BCE, 70 CE, they don't see geopolitics. They don't see Babylonia's desire for domination and expansion in contest with Assyria and with Egypt. They don't see Rome being frustrated with this pesky little province that won't abide by the cultural structure it's trying to build for the world. The rabbis don't see all of that. They locate it in the Jewish story. And what the rabbis say is the first temple was destroyed, again, not because of Nebuchadnezzar and what he wanted to do, but it was destroyed because of 3 sins. Because of sexual immorality, bloodshed, and idol worship. Because of those things, God sent Babylonia to destroy the first temple. In the second temple, the rabbis of the Talmud say, at that point, we weren't shedding blood or worshiping idols. The sin of that moment that led to the destruction of the second temple was sinat chinam. Sinah, hatred, chinam, that is free. Freely given hatred. Wanton, baseless hatred between the Jewish people. There's a story in the Talmud that shares that, but I don't know if you remember, but I remember that I told it last year on the Friday before Tisha B'Av, and I didn't want to tell it again. So if you want that, come tomorrow morning. We'll study that a little bit during Lift. But the rabbis, when they look at Tisha B'Av, they don't see it as our moment to sit and woe about what the rest of the world has done unto us. That being said, there is plenty that the rest of the world has done unto us. It is not to undermine or discount or dismiss the reality of anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish hatred and persecution, and again, the various expulsions, exterminations of our people. But the rabbis look at this day and wonder about us. What role did we take in destruction of the core sacred reality of our people? The Torah doesn't know from a prayer book. It doesn't know from the way we celebrate our holidays. The Torah says, you shall offer sacrifices to God with the priests in the temple in the city of Jerusalem. And when that's destroyed, there's nothing. And it's the genius of our tradition that we remake it. We build rabbinic Judaism that we get to practice today. If that is a confusing history and I glossed something important, it's okay. Come ask me at Oneg. But the rabbis say, in this moment, they don't say, what's the problem with Babylonia or with Rome? They ask us to look inside. It is not a comfortable ask. It's not comfortable to have to do that work. And not to suggest that any hardship that befall our people is that we earned it or we deserve it. But it asks us to take some time for introspection, to wonder about the first temple, about too much bloodshed, to wonder about idol worship, about the things that we worship that are not worthy of our devotion and attention. Power, prestige, money, strength, might. The work of our own hands rather than something that is ineffable and that it calls us to be who we're supposed to be. When we worship that leads to us losing the core of who we are. Or it's a 70 CE question, the second temple. Sinat chinam, baseless, wanton, freely given hate. And when I look at the Jewish community, thank God I don't see that here. When I look at the broader Jewish community, there's too much hatred that's given freely. The way that we discount the one with whom we disagree. We draw lines to say this one's not welcome, or that one's not welcome, or this is unacceptable, or we can't hear from this person because they believe X, Y, or Z. We draw red lines within community. We dismiss. We allow this subterranean discomfort, this icky feeling that distances us from one another to pull community apart in a moment when we need community, where we need space for conversation, even and especially when we disagree. That's the Talmudic story that tells the moment. It's a guy who, for no reason whatsoever, likes this one and hates that one and embarrasses this one in front of everyone and banishes him from community that leads a winding path towards destruction. So we're asked to wonder, what's the status of hatred, of cruelty that's given too freely in our communities and our conversations? Where are we not willing to sit at the table and break bread because of disagreement? And when that happens, when we're not willing to sit and break bread, to look someone in the eye and listen and share ourselves, to be curious and compassionate, how does that dissolve the core of who we say we are? Tisha B'Av is not a comfortable day. It's not a day that's there to make us feel better. It's just a day to sit and feel it, to feel the heaviness and the sorrow, the worry. It's a day that in some ways marks the beginning of the High Holy Day season, which the rabbi said and got a little uncomfortable ulcer in his stomach. We have to evaluate who and where we are. What sits at the core, and are we sustaining it or are we dissolving it? And how will that mark our way and chart our path towards a new beginning, a reckoning, and a new house that we'll build together? Every year we knock down the house and rebuild it. I know some of us in this community have read Alan Lew's This Is Real and You're Completely Unprepared. That's his vision of this time. On Tisha B'Av, the house is destroyed. A new year begins. We do an accounting of our souls, and then we build up something new together. We can turn off, if only we could, turn off the outside world for just a moment and look to us. Look to the Jewish community and who we are and how we listen and care for one another. What's dissolving around us? What do we wish that we could sustain? Who do we have to be to allow it to rebuild, even if the foundation is rickety and rain kind of pours through the roof? We have to have some citronella candles inside while we shake our lulav and etrog. What do we need to do to help rebuild, to ensure that the core of who we are doesn't dissolve? It is sacred and important work. The first step is hard. It's to be brave enough to stay up late, sit on the floor, sing, and read Eicha. How? Why? How did we get to this moment? And what do we want the next moment to look like? Tomorrow night, we'll sit. We'll just sit. And then in the weeks that follow, we stand back up. We have weeks, months of consolation, and then a chance to start something new, to turn the calendar, to start a new year and build something worthy of the place where we come together to offer our time and our love and our care. Worthy of the beautiful history and tradition, worthy of the Torah that we've been granted that inspires and calls us not to hatred but to love. Dear God, as we move through this month of Av, help us turn our hearts towards love. Shabbat Shalom.